tell us when you're rolling.
Okay.
1 second, Larry, you ready? Set. Cool. So you want to start with, I guess, where did the idea for the beer came from? That might be a good start.
Okay.
You guys can talk to each other.
I was just, thanks for coming here today, Marco. We're delighted that you could come to launch our dad's beer. But basically, just to give you a bit of a background on it, my dad grew up in Cavan, left Cavan in the early 40s to come to Dublin, trained in the bar business as a cellarman, and loved the bar business, and his ambition was to open a pub on Camden Street, that he had chosen Camden Street to open a pub whenever he got the finances together. So in 1947, I think it was 47, he bought a shop in Camden Street and opened a fruit and vegetable business as a stepping stone to getting his pub in Camden Street. Unfortunately, 9 children later, in 1975, he passed away suddenly and never got the opportunity to open his pub on Camden Street.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but can I ask a simple question? In 1975, 30 years on from when he first arrived, did he still have the dream to open a pub?
He did, absolutely, yeah. And a number of times in the 30 years that he was operating in the fruit and veg shop, he put offers on pubs, but never really got to buy them.
Because what's interesting, that photograph I've seen of your father, where he's dressed as a cellarman and dressed immaculately.
Yeah.
And you can imagine when he ran his fruit and veg shop, he would dress in a very similar way.
Very similar, yeah.
And a cellarman is a beautiful profession. And there's very few good cellarmen left in this world. For me, it's a dying profession. And I'm sure when we speak with the head brewer here, the master brewer, that we'll talk about that. But I remember the old days when you had a cellarman, and he was always immaculately dressed.
Yeah.
And always looked after his beer. He would tap the barrel the night before to let it settle. So you always let your barrel settle.
Sure.
And I remember when I was a boy, where I lived, behind my house, there was a pub called the Moorcock. And I remember when the beer used to arrive, and the barrels in those days were much larger. So it showed you in those days that people drank a lot more beer than they do today.
Yeah.
But it arrived in wooden barrels. And they used to have almost like this train track which used to drop off the back of the lorry. Because it was like a flat truck, and all the barrels were there.
Yeah.
And they used to roll the barrels, and they'd have a sack of sawdust. I don't know if you remember that.
Sure. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I don't think you should cut this out. I think it's... What's this song called?
Someone gets Shazam.
AC/DC.
It's a good song, this.
Should I say or should I go?
That's right.
So my
That's exactly what I was thinking. Which lunatic turned that on?
Actually, not AC/DC.
Okay.
Sorry?
Okay, cool.
I'm not sure if it's AC/DC.
Just for that was a funny break. In this next break, could you jump into Fitzers Beer specifically?
okay.
That idea.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
And I guess you could talk about some of the
Wait,
ingredients in it and what
We
makes
just
it
finished.
different.
Where were we then?
You were talking about the barrels, and I was going to come in.
Yes.
But I was going to come in, Marco, after that, and actually talk about the image, because it is my dad tapping one of those big barrels.
That's right.
So that's leading me into that. Yeah.
Yes, I think you've laid the foundation.
Yeah.
I think that's what's important. You laid the foundation of the story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
So I'll just finish off about the barrels. But that's unbelievable, isn't it? But how can people work in that environment?
With AC/DC on.
I don't know if it was AC/DC. Was it AC/DC? I mean, it's sort of like a fun palace, this place, isn't it? Well, that's what the Victorians created.
It was, yeah.
That's what they were called, fun palaces.
Are we good to go again, then, or what are we
Could you
doing?
imagine someone trying to...
Are you good to go again, or?
Yeah, we're still rolling. So
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
You just got to wait for the...
Oh, yes, yeah.
And they all stopped down there. And they've turned the aircon on now, so we've got all the noise now. Genius. Is the... So I think... I'll pick up then. I'll pick up. Who are you ready?
just one quick question. Trish, you can't turn that aircon off by any chance.
They just turn it on. But could you imagine if the cost of building something of this scale.
Yeah, literally just came on.
It's like there's just someone with a switchboard.
I mean, this would have cost a fortune, wouldn't it? Today, to build this today.
Oh yeah, no. When it was built,
That
though, I
castle.
think when it was built, it was. I didn't think it cost that much, really, in comparison to today's
Oh, today, yeah.
to actually do the works.
Labour would have been a lot less.
Yeah, yeah,
Cost of material would have been less, but also a lot of individuals had craft.
yeah,
There's a lot more talented people in those
yeah.
days.
Sure, sure.
Because today, when you think people who could do this, there are people who can do this, but they're not. There's not the same
Yeah.
quantity of
Yeah,
them.
that's right.
They've gone into IT and all those.
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Different-
yeah,
Got different skill sets.
yeah.
Because this would have all been done on mould, you see.
Guys, you can keep going. It's
Okay, okay, okay.
So I'll pick it from where I.
Yeah.
And if I think back to my childhood, if I think back to my childhood, behind my house there was a pub called the Moorcock. I remember when they used to deliver the beer
Yeah.
in those wooden barrels, which you can
Sure.
see your father tapping.
Yeah,
And they were quite large compared to today's barrels. I mean, so it shows you that
double the
people's-
size. Yeah,
People's intake of beer in those days was enormous.
sure.
And they used to roll them, and there was almost like this, it was like a tram line which used to come off the back of the lorry. And they used to slide the barrels down onto a giant sack, which looks like a giant cushion really, filled with sawdust, and then they'd roll them.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to come every week, I used to watch them all the time. And when I saw that beautiful photograph of your father tapping the barrels, it made me think of my childhood watching the delivery men deliver the beer.
Yeah.
But that was a long time ago.
And that's really why we decided to look at the beer concept, because the restaurants were closed during COVID for quite some time, and I was looking through all the old photographs one day with my wife Audrey, and we came across this photograph of my dad, dressed up, as you say, like a proper cellar man, like with the apron and the suit, shirt and tie, and he was tapping one of these big barrels. And we both agreed, Audrey and I agreed, that that was a fantastic image and that we should use it in some way in our business to commemorate our father. And I started to investigate various things, like maybe we'd put it on a bottle of beer or something. And at the same time, I discovered that Five Lamps Brewery had opened in Camden Street. And the whole thing came together because I had been talking to the people in Five Lamps and C&C about our wine lists as well. But the whole thing came together in relation to, you know, this is like a karma. It's too good to let it go, that my dad is coming back to Camden Street. Would the Five Lamps be generous enough to produce a beer in honour of our father that we could sell in our restaurants? So I spoke to William, and William said he'd be delighted to produce a beer for us, a pale ale of some sort. And then, you know, we got talking to them, would we bottle it or would we have it on draft? And they said draft was the way to go. So that's how the whole concept evolved.
Well, draft makes a better pint.
Yeah.
But I think what's rather beautiful and very romantic, the street where your father first arrived,
Yeah,
and set up his veg shop,
yeah,
over the road,
sure,
where you used to come as a young man to the cinema,
sure.
that's where it's being brewed,
Yeah,
in
exactly.
that same
Yeah.
street. And I think the only thing that never dates within our industry is romance. And I think to assist in realising your father's dream, even though sadly he's no longer here to see it, it's not the point. You've continued his legacy and his dream. And I think that image of your father, I can still visualise it now. It's very, very, very powerful and very beautiful. And as I say, maybe one day you should buy a pub.
Yeah,
The Fitzers Arms.
that's his arms or legs.
Yeah, or head.
But it's also very apt. It's very apt today, Marco, that
We have a little taste of this stuff.
yeah. But it's very apt that you're here today doing this because you know how important family is to us and to you, and we consider you as family since we've been in business with you. So
You're very kind.
it's so apt that you're here today to launch this beer for us. And I know my father would be so proud of the various businesses that we have developed in our family. And we're so delighted that we've taken the final step off the stepping stone to give him his
It's
licensed
almost
premises.
80 years ago
Yeah.
he arrived in Dublin
Yeah.
with that dream.
That's right.
And doesn't that show you that you should never stop dreaming?
That's right, Joe.
You know?
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's very beautiful. And I think 80 years later almost, to brew a pint and create a pint in his name, I think is a very romantic and very beautiful thing to do. And I can't wait to taste it.
Absolutely.
Where's Master William with our beer? Master William, come and join us.
We'll definitely use that as the end of the video. That was a really nice wrap up. If we could just finish up with, just talk a little bit about the ingredients, where they come from.
That's William really from.
It's all
Yeah,
William.
yeah,
William.
yeah,
Come on,
Okay,
William.
perfect. Yeah, yeah.
Come on, you can jump in. This is the master brewer.
There, pocket.
This is very exciting.